Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we are going to be explaining how to create data tables using SQL, and we are going to use the create command, the delete. We're going to delete data from the database. We are going to select data from the table. We are going to insert data inside of the table. So in the last video, I showed you how to create a database, and I showed you how to create a table inside of the database by going to the tables and then new and then table. And inside of this, you will have the column name, data type, and if you want to allow nulls or not. This time we will use this in query. We will create a table using query. SQL query. So first we want to use the create command. So create table. This will create a table. These are reserved keywords. reserved keywords يعني كلمات مخصوصة للبرنامج. These words are used by the program only, by SQL Server Management Studio only. So we can't name our table create. You see, it gives an error. Okay, so we need to name the table. I will call it users, and then we want to create the columns. Creating the columns by typing two parentheses, and then inside of these parentheses we can add columns. So the first column in most tables is the ID. The ID is a unique identifier for each row, okay? So even if we have multiple rows that have the same data, duplicate rows, we can identify each row by a unique key. Key in this instance will be a number from 1 to maybe 100 or whatever number of rows we have. And this number will be automatically generated by the table. Okay, so first we want to create the ID, and then we want to specify, this is the column name first, and then the data type. So the data type of the ID, I will make it integer. You can make it varchar, but I want to use integer so it's automatically generated, okay, by the program. So integer يعني بيخزن أرقام فقط. Okay, so integer, and we are gonna set this as primary key for the table. So the ID is gonna be an integer and a primary key, and then we want this integer to increase one by one. To start from 1 when we enter the first row inside of the table, will start from 1, and then the row after it will be 2, and so on. Okay, so to do that, we want to write identity. This is a keyword. As you can see, it's highlighted in blue, and inside of this parentheses we want to put the first number that will be in the ID. Okay, so the starting number, it can start from 0, 1, 2, or even 100. It doesn't matter. So I will start from 1. The first ID will be 1, and then comma, and then this is the number of steps each time we increase this number when we add a row. الرقم الأول رقم البداية، الرقم اللي نبدأ منه، والرقم الثاني هو عدد الزيادة، يعني كل مرة نزيدها في كل رو. يعني بيبدأ من 1 مثلا، بعدين إذا حطيت هنا 2 1 بعدين بيزيد عليه 2 بيصير 3 وهكذا. So we'll start with 1. We'll start with 1, and then we'll increase 1 by 1 each time we add rows. Okay, so this is the end of the column here, and when we end the column, when we finish creating the column, we write comma. After that we can add the other columns. Okay, The other column will be maybe username. Here we will add a name for our users. So let's say varchar. Varchar is data type which takes letters and numbers. Okay, so we can use letters and numbers in the same field. Okay, and inside of the parentheses here we want to specify the length of the string. Okay, هنا نحدد طول الكلمة. Okay, طول الفيلد هذا كم حرف يتكون منه هذا الفيلد الرو يعني. Okay, so this is we'll specify the number of characters inside of this field. So most names are 50 characters. Some of the names will be so most names will not be more than 50 characters. Okay, so we will add varchar 50, and then we want to add another field which is phone number. Okay, and here we will use also varchar to create the phone number. So we'll add 20. The length will be 20. Okay, and then when you finish your table, don't put a comma at the end, because this is the last row. Okay, this is the last column. Okay, and if you wanted to add more, you can add, but this time we'll not add more. And then here you can specify if the value is null or not. Null يعني فاضي. هل يقدر يكون هذا الحقل فاضي أو لا. If we type null means nothing, so means if this field is able to be empty or not. Okay, can we make this field empty or not? So let's type the name to be not null. So each time when we enter data to the table, we have to put a name. Okay, we must put a name inside of the username field, not null. Okay, so null means empty. And now we can execute the query. We can execute the query, and this will create a table. As you can see, we can execute it from here or press F5. Commands completed successfully. So now if we refresh the page from here, if we refresh click here and then refresh the server. Okay, database, refresh the database. And now inside of the tables, we can see we have created the users table. Okay, and the columns are ID, as you can see here. This is the ID. Here's the column ID. It's an integer, as you can see here. It's an integer. It's also the primary key, as you can see here. It's a primary key, PK, and it doesn't accept nulls. It has to have a value, and then here it increases from 1 to infinity. As you can see also here, these are the names and so on. So let's enter data inside of the database. So we will create a new query. So we will keep this to the side. Okay, we will create a new query and we will insert data inside of this table, the users table. So to insert data, you need to use the insert keyword. Insert into, and then you call the name of the table, and then you specify which columns you will enter data inside. Okay, so we will use the users table, users, and then we will specify the fields. So here we have 3 columns, but we will enter only data for the username column and for the phone number. we will not enter data for the ID because the ID is already automatically increased. Okay, so we don't need to add data for the ID. So we will just use the username. Just make sure that the name you use here is the same name in here, in the columns section, because it will make errors for you. So to make sure that you have the same name, just click on this and type rename, and then copy the name of the column from here, and then paste it here. Okay. Okay, let's add the phone number. Okay, so phone number and username. And then after that, we want to use the keyword values. Values يعني قيم. Okay, so we will enter the values of the username and phone number for the first row. Okay, so to enter a varchar, as you can see here, the data type of the username is varchar. To use a varchar, you need double quote here. Okay, and then double quote for the phone number, because we have double quote for the user. We have varchar for the username and varchar for the phone. Okay, so the username will be let's say Ahmed, and then the phone number will be 90974 whatever. Okay, and then as you can see here, it gives me an error because the database is still not refreshed inside of the execution, inside of the query page. I don't know why this happens, but don't worry about this. If you have the right command, the right syntax, it will run the code. So let's execute the code by pressing F5 or clicking on this here. As you can see here, one row affected. So if we want to see what data we have, we want what data we have inside of our database. As you can see, we have entered the data. It was successfully created. So let's create a new query. I don't need to create a new query, but I want to keep these pages up, so it's much easier for me to explain for you. Okay, so let's go to the new query, and then we want to let's say we want to see the row that we have entered here. Okay, so to take data from the database, to extract data from the database, you need the select keyword. Select, and then we specify the column names that we want. Each column we will take each column from the database, and we will display it here. Okay, so you can use the star here, the star symbol like this, to get everything from the database, each column, every column from the database at once, or you can use their names one by one. So we will use names, ID, comma, user name, and then phone number. Okay, and then we use the keyword from. Okay, so we will take the ID, the name, the username, and the phone from the table users. Then we type the table's name, users. Okay, and after that we can specify a condition from where, but we will explain this later. Okay, so now we can just press F5 and run the query. So click execute. Okay, so now when we execute, we see the query that we have made here. we entered the name Ahmed, and then we entered the number 9743. So as you can see here, the name Ahmed, and then the phone number is 9743, and the ID is automatically generated. We didn't need to add an ID. As you can see, the ID is 1, and then it will be 2 when we enter other data. So to enter more data inside of the database and enter them by using this command, multiple rows. To enter multiple rows, you need to use the same command like this, but we will copy this, okay, and then we'll write comma, and then we'll add the same 2 parentheses here, and then the same structure, but we will change the values. Okay, so let's change the name to be Khalid, and then the phone number to be something random. Okay, and then we can add other data. Let's say Muhammad. Okay, and then the user, the username, the phone number will be different, and then we can execute. So this is how to enter multiple rows of data inside one query. So if I execute, so 3 rows affected, and I go here inside of this query, we select the ID, the username, the phone number from users. As you can see here, when I click on execute, it will take the ID, the name, and the phone, and as you can see, we have the same entries again. I did not change this, so this is ID 2, this is ID 3, and it increases each time we use this query. So now let's test if we insert into the database, but we don't enter a username. As you can see here, the username must be not null. It means you need to enter a value inside of the database with the username. Okay, so username, insert into users. Okay, only the phone number. Okay, and then we type values, and then we enter only the phone number. Let's enter a phone number, and then when we execute, cannot insert the value null into column username. You see, if we don't enter a username, this will give us an error each time. Okay, as you can see here, it's not added to the database. You see here, it's not added to the database. This number is not added here. So we must include the username. But if we deleted the number, let's say replace this with username, and then we give a username, let's say Hassan, and then we execute, you see it enters the data normally. When we select, get everything from the data, you see the username, the phone number can be null. So the phone number can be null, but the username cannot be null, cannot contain, it must contain data. Here it doesn't contain data, but the space is considered as data. Okay, when you press the space bar, it's considered as data, even if it's empty. But we need to include the username here inside of the columns in the insert username. We can make it without name, but it must be here. Okay, and then we can delete the data from this database. Okay, so here we have the IDs from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. Okay, so the ID of 7, we have the ID of 4, 5, 4, and 3, and 2. Okay, so let's say we wanted to delete the last row. So we will call the delete procedure, the delete command, and then we will specify the table name, delete from users. Okay, and then we will specify the condition, a shart, where the place where we delete from. Okay, the place where we delete from is from, we will delete the where the ID is equal to 7. We will delete everything from the users table where the ID is equal to 7. Okay, here when the ID is equal to 7. Okay, if the ID is equal to 7, we will delete this record. And if I execute, as you can see here, it is affected. And when I go here and select everything again, you see the row with ID 7 is removed. Okay, so let's delete the last 3 rows. When we want to delete the IDs from 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so let's make a condition, a new condition, where ID is less than or equal to 5, less than or equal to 5. We will delete that, but we want to stop and when we reach 3. So and ID is bigger than or equal to 3. So we will start from 5, we will go down 5, then 4, and then 3. Okay, we will stop at 3. When the ID is bigger than or equal to 3, we will delete the rows. Okay, so delete from the users table where the ID is less than or equal to 5. So we will go from 5 to go down, and then we will stop at 3. So when I execute, press F5. We need to wait for the query. Refresh. Now press here and then execute. You see 3 rows affected. And when I go here, refresh again. Okay, press here and then execute. When I select everything, you see everything was deleted from 5 to 3.